Okay, I think that we can start now. This all 48 student. So can you hear me, student? Someone can answer me, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So welcome to the course. And we will start sharing the screen, and you can see. Okay. Yes, okay. So we will start our course for the first week. The course name Object-Oriented Programming, and some information about about me. My name is Đỗ Thị Ngọc Diệp. Yeah, and my working office is in the room 10-4 of the building B1. And this is my email and my telephone. So in some case you have to contact to me, you can contact via the email or via the Teams. You can chatting with me in the Teams. Yeah, and my main research is on the speech communication. That means processing the speech, for example, Vietnamese speech or English speech, to have the interaction, between pupil and the machine. So if someone among you who want to do the research on the speech, you can contact to me and we can define some project. Okay, this very quick information about me. And all the course information I will be upload in the Microsoft Teams. You can see I will upload to you the lecturer note, the project, every announcement on the transcript. I think the very quickly interaction with you, we can use the Teams, because when I send the email to student, many students never never check the mail. So I think with the Teams is very quickly to get you into the information. Okay, and of course I will use another way to contact to you. For example, I will send you the mail. For example, at the end of the course, maybe we can have the final examination, and we need some information, very official information, and I will contact via the mail. So please check your email, the seedhood@edu.vn email. Okay, some student even at the end of the course said with me, I have never checked the email. So please remember and try to check your email frequently. Okay. And this is some remark about the first introduction. I will introduce to you later about the OOP, about the detailed outline, some reference you can use in the course. We will fix the way we evaluate the course. For example, how you can get the grade or the mark, and we can have some small discussion at the end. Okay. So during my course, if you have any comment or any question, maybe you can ask me directly, or you can send the cheating via the team or email for me. Okay. So what will the course bring to you? So when you complete the course, you can have knowledge about the basic of programming, and you can approach and master the object-oriented parallelism, and you understand the Java background. Okay, because we learned about the object-oriented programming. That means we have to use a language programming, a programming language, to demonstrate the theory and the application, for example. And the department decided to use Java. Okay, some student can comment that why you don't use C++, for example, but it's the decision of the department. So we use Java in our course, and if some of you want to learn about the C++, you can how to say self-study in the internet. Okay, and after complete the course, you can do by yourself the application. You can install and you can use the tool to develop your own application. Okay, and what are the requirements for you, for student? You have to attend all the classes. Yes, you have to self-study and master the programming language. That means this course is not focused much on the programming language. It's focused on the object-oriented programming. How you program the application via the object-oriented direction. So you have to master and you have to study by yourself how you can do the programming, all the programming technique. Yeah. And another requirement for you is that you have to follow the programming style. That means when you do your homework, for example, when you do your project and during the examination, you have to follow the programming style. For example, the way we indent the code, like how you clean the code, how we make the comment, you have, for example. So you should be, of course, we said that you have to, it's not strictly like this, but you should, yeah, because following the programming style, we have you a lot when you do when you create the application, because it's make your code is easier to read. It can be read easily, and it makes you have some professional style for the future when you go to the company and you want to become a professional developer. Okay, so please follow the programming style. And during the course, you have the exercise, of course. So you have to complete the weekly exercises. That means maybe after each chapter, we have the exercise and you have to do it by yourself. And I will create the assignment in the Teams, and you will have to upload and turn in your exercise. Is there anyone have never used assignment in team? Maybe all of you already know about the assignment in team, because maybe this the second semester we have to study online. Okay, and we have also the project in the course. This is just a very small project when you can apply your knowledge about the object-oriented programming to build a whole application, a full application. And you will do the project in a group of 2 or 3 students. And in the final week of the course, where you have to defend your project. Okay, so this your requirement, and you have to complete all the requirement. Is this clear for you, student?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And the outline of the course we have here, we have 11 chapter, and we will pass every chapter step by step. Okay, you will know a little. You will know the overview about the OOP. You will know the basic of the Java syntax. You will be introduced about the class and objects, and how you can build and use a class and object. And you will be you will learn about the very advanced technique, not very advanced, but the very how to say specific technique in the OOP about the inheritance, for example, about the polymorphism, for example, very specific for the OOP. And you will be introduced about the general programming or exception handling, and we have one chapter to learn about how you can do the programming with interface. That means we will learn about the UI programming, and a small lessons about how you can analyze and design with OOP direction. And because this is not the main purpose of our course about the analyze and design, so we just focus on the class diagram. When you do the OOP programming, you need to understand about the class diagram. Okay, so this is just the overview of our 11 chapter, and we will pass each chapter for the next week. Okay, some reference for
Thưa
you.
cô,
Yes. Yes.
học phần này phải học bằng tiếng Anh à cô? Hay là
Yes. This
em
this
tưởng là slide
the
sẽ bằng tiếng Anh còn nói bằng tiếng Việt chứ ạ?
no, I see in the assignment of the university this course is in English, and for the last semester I have to teach this course in English also. I think maybe because this the first week you meet me, so you can hear me not clearly, but in the next week maybe this is better for you. I think it is okay.
Okay. I do
Okay,
understand.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
And of course,
questions?
yes.
Do we have to learn Java?
Yes, as I explained at the beginning, yeah, this the how to say the group of teacher for the course decided that we use Java in the presentation. That means we have to introduce to you about the OOP, and we have to use a language to demonstrate the OOP. So we use Java in the presentation, but when you do the project, you can choose another OOP language. Okay, but we have to choose Java in the presentation. Tức là bộ môn thì cũng thống nhất là sử dụng Java là cái ngôn ngữ để mô tả về cái học phần lập trình hướng đối tượng, đúng không? Rõ ràng là khi các bạn học thì phải đưa ra các cái ví dụ, thì rồi chúng tôi thống nhất là sử dụng Java. Thế nhưng mà ngoài ra thì các bạn có thể là trong quá trình làm bài tập lớn, nếu các bạn nào mà thạo những cái ngôn ngữ lập trình hướng đối tượng khác thì có thể lựa chọn nhé. Cái đấy cũng không có gì là ràng buộc cả. Vì học phần của chúng ta là lập trình hướng đối tượng thì hướng tới là giới thiệu cho các bạn kỹ về các cái kỹ thuật chính trong hướng đối tượng. Và những kỹ thuật này thì là ngôn ngữ lập trình nào cũng phải có, chỉ có là cái cách thể hiện của nó, cách biểu diễn nó khác nhau. Chính vì thế thì nếu mà việc mà mình cứ sử dụng tất cả các ngôn ngữ vào trong một cái bài giảng thì nó sẽ làm lẫn lộn, và nhiều bạn là nó sẽ không bị confused giữa cái nọ với cái kia, nên là chỉ thống nhất là dùng một ngôn ngữ thôi. Thế nhưng nếu các bạn mà đã đã master những cái ngôn ngữ khác thì các bạn cũng có thể sử dụng nhé. Có điều là đấy là trong project của các bạn thôi. Còn trong bài tập về nhà thì các bạn vẫn phải dùng Java. Vì sao? Vì chúng ta phải chữa bài để cho những bạn khác bạn xem. Thế thì bây giờ hãy cứ coi như có những bạn đã học ngôn ngữ, học cái course này từ đầu thì bạn chưa biết một ngôn ngữ nào cả, thì là các bạn vẫn phải làm bài tập về nhà theo Java. Chỉ có phần project thì nếu các bạn cảm thấy là em đã master những cái ngôn ngữ lập trình hướng đối tượng khác thì cô vẫn welcome các bạn dùng các ngôn ngữ đấy nhé. Is this clear for you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, okay, thank you. So I introduce to you this reference, and you can use during your course, and you can use as your refer letter, and maybe the most very common reference now you use is the internet with the Google. Okay, so if you have question or you have something you not clear, you can try to search on the Google. Okay. And now I introduce about the evaluation, how you will be evaluated for this course. Okay, as the group of teacher decide the evaluation of the course, we will have two parts. The first one is the process grade. Okay, this means điểm quá trình. Okay, with the ratio of 30%, and you have the final examination, that means cái điểm thi kết thúc môn 70%. Okay, these two parts of of your evaluation. And inside the process grade, I have divided into two parts. The first one is weekly exercise, which contain 30%. That means you have to do your assignment for weekly exercise, and you have to present your exercise to other students, and you will get the grade. This is the first part. And the second one is the project with your group. As I explained to you, you will have a project, a small project of 2 or 3 students, and you will present it at the end of the course, at the last week of the course. Maybe we spend 2 or 3 weeks to defend the project. And these two parts make you the progress grade. Okay, 30% of the weekly exercise and 70% of the project. Okay, is this clear for you? And then finally you will have the whole evaluation for the course. Clear? Is this clear for you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we fixed it like this. Okay. And now we can have some small discussion among third, you and me, for example. And do you have any requirement for me? Have you ever developed a software application? And do you have a programming skill, for example, or you can master some other programming languages? Okay. So maybe, of course, maybe among you there are some students already know other programming language. Have you ever learned any programming language? For example, you are already the third year student. Yeah.
I think Ruby and C++.
Oh, yes. Okay. So there are some students already know about the OOP. Okay, no problem. maybe during the course you can how to say, you can improve your knowledge, and maybe you can learn something interesting thing during the course. Okay, so your knowledge about the C++ can help you to understand quickly this course. Okay, and so you are already in the third year student, so you already have the programming skill. The programming skill. Do you have the programming skill? That means you understand how you analyze a problem, and then you can deploy the solution. For example, have you have the programming skill, or have you ever developed by yourself software? I hope
Yes.
yes. Thank you. Yes. So I think this will have you easy to feel easily during the course. Okay. And if someone among you who have never learned about programming skill, or who don't know any programming language, you should focus on the class. Okay, I will introduce to you, not too quickly. I will introduce to you slowly, step by step, and very clear for you, even when you are very new in this programming. But I hope that you can understand. And very important, if you don't understand anything, you have to ask me quickly and immediately. Okay? If you don't understand anything, you ask me immediately. I will explain to you. Because if you pass it, so in the next chapter, you cannot understand it, nothing. Okay? So do you have any requirement for me?
Teacher, I have thôi
Yeah.
để em nói tiếng Việt đi ạ. Thì phần lớn là sinh viên ở trong lớp ạ, đều là sinh viên năm 2 cô ạ. Cho nên là bọn em cũng không có nhiều cái skill về lập trình ạ. Cho nên là em mong là cô có thể vừa giảng tiếng Anh vừa giảng tiếng Việt cho bọn em cũng được ạ. Tại vì là có nhiều môn bọn em cũng được học như thế ạ. Tại vì nếu mà chỉ có tiếng Anh thì có thể là bọn em sẽ bị khó hiểu ạ. Vâng, em cảm ơn cô.
Yes. Okay. I think that you already in the third year. Okay. Yeah, I always have this demand from every class, English class. Okay, so I prepare already for you the slide in Vietnamese version also. And I will upload to you the Vietnamese version also on the team. You will have both English and Vietnamese version. This is the first thing I can have you. And the second one is during my presentation, if I present to you bilingual, that means both English and Vietnamese, I think we have to double the time. That means we cannot go as quick as the course demand. So I will introduce to you mostly in English, but when there are something very important, or when there is something very hard to understand, I will explain more in Vietnamese. Okay, but I cannot present to you bilingual because we don't have enough time to do this. Is this okay for you? I will send to you also the Vietnamese version of the slide, and you can prepare by yourself at home, for example. I think it's okay because besides the student, we have also other students who want to learn in English. Is this okay for you? I can have you like this. Is this okay?
I think it's
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Tức là cô cũng sẽ cung cấp cho các bạn một cái bản slide bằng tiếng Việt. Thì những bạn nào mà cần phải tham khảo bằng tiếng Việt thì có thể tham khảo thêm cái slide đấy. Còn trong quá trình dạy thì cô không thể dạy song ngữ được vì là nó sẽ làm chậm chương trình. Chúng ta không có thời gian. Đấy, và trong quá trình giảng thì những chỗ nào mà khó hoặc là những chỗ nào là những cái điểm quan trọng thì cô sẽ nói thêm bằng tiếng Việt vào nhé. Thì những bạn nào mà thấy là khó hiểu hay gì đấy thì phải chủ động lên, đúng không? Xem thêm cái bài giảng bằng tiếng Việt, có thể xem trước đi. Đấy, ngày hôm nay học cái chương này thì đọc qua đi xem là có cái thông tin gì không để cũng nắm bắt được nhé. Chứ còn thực sự là môn này là nhà trường giao là phải dạy bằng tiếng Anh, thì cô cũng vẫn phải đảm bảo cái nhiệm vụ dạy bằng tiếng Anh, bởi vì trong lớp cũng sẽ có những cái bạn muốn được học bằng tiếng Anh. Cái việc học bằng tiếng Anh cũng là để improve cái skill của các bạn sau này lên nhé. Thì cô sẽ giúp các bạn bằng cái cách là như vậy. Okay, so now we can move to our first lesson. Okay.
Em thưa cô.
Yes.
Em hỏi một câu. Đến lúc mình làm bài tập thì mình làm bằng tiếng Anh hay tiếng Việt?
My exercise will be in English, but student already answer and ask me in Vietnamese. Because the exercise is how you can programming a program. So you use Java. You not use English or Vietnamese in the exercise. Okay, you will use Java. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And for the final examination, is depend on the department. Sometimes we decide that the English class will have English examination, but sometimes we decide that every class we have the same exam, so we have the same, and you will do the examination in Vietnamese. So this it depends. Okay, it depends. Okay, we cannot decide now for you. So we just know about how we presentation and how we do the homework. But for the final examination, we don't know yet. Okay. Okay. So now we move to the first lesson. Okay, you can see the first lesson. Yeah, the first lesson is always the overview lessons. Yeah. The objective of this lesson will give you the overview of the OOP technology, the concept, advantages, roles, application, the development of programming language, for example. I will introduce to you the first idea about the class is an object. Okay, just the idea. Yeah, and later in the next lesson, we will go into detail how we define and how we use the class and object. Okay, so in this lesson, just the idea, and you can imagine what is class and what is object. Okay, we will talk about the object, the state of object, behavior of object. We talk about the class, attribute, and methods, okay? And how they interacted between the object. Okay, I will introduce a little about the Java programming language. What it is, for example. We talk about Java platform, Java compiler and interpreter, some feature and application of the Java. And this lesson we enter with with some guide to you to set up the programming environment. Okay, so at the end of the class, you have to set up by yourself the environment to do the programming. Okay, so, we will have four parts in this lesson today. Okay, we talk firstly about the technology of object-oriented, là gì? Kỹ thuật đúng không? Hoặc là công nghệ hướng đối tượng. Yeah. So firstly, we talk a little about the programming technique. Yeah, maybe for some second year student, you are not very clear about what is the programming technique. So what is the programming technique? That means you want to implement a software solution, for example. So what do you need? You will need the methodology on how you can implement a software solution. Okay, to do this, you have to define the data structure, the algorithm, and you have to specify a programming language you can do. So with this thing, you can implement a software solution. So the programming technique is the technique to help you to implement a software solution. Okay, what do you need when you do this? You need the methodology, tức là gọi là phương pháp học, đúng không? You need a data structure, cấu trúc dữ liệu, cách mình biểu diễn dữ liệu để giải quyết vấn đề thế nào. You need algorithm, các cái giải thuật để giải quyết, đúng không? Và and you have to apply the programming languages, tức là phải dùng một cái ngôn ngữ lập trình nào đấy để tiến hành triển khai một cái phần mềm. So what does it mean, a programming language? Yeah. You understand that when you want to implement a software solution, you need to use a programming language. So what is a programming language? The programming language is a standardized language, tức là ngôn ngữ được chuẩn hóa. And both human and computer can read and understand. This is the way we control the computer. So both human and computer need to understand the programming language. Okay, and the programming language, before the computer can understand the coding, you have to compile the source code into the machine code. Okay, we will to do the programming technique. Firstly, we need to define about the data, for example, the algorithm, how you solve the problem. Okay, then you decide a programming language, and you write down the code. You will write out the code, and before the machine, your computer can understand the code, you have to pass a process we call compiler to convert the writing code maybe in C++ or in Java, for example. You compile it into what we call the machine code. So the computer can understand and can do correctly what you want. So this the whole process when you want to implement a software application. Okay, so this just some overview for you. So what about the evolution of the programming languages? We have many kind of programming language, and this make many generation of the programming language. Yeah, we know firstly this the machine language. Okay, what is machine language? We talked already about the machine language, but what is this? Who can explain for me what is machine language? Ai giải thích được cho cô xem là cái machine language nó là cái gì nhỉ? Hello?
Em nghĩ là máy phiên dịch đúng không ạ?
Không, cô hỏi cái machine language trước đã.
I think machine language is
yes. Yes, welcome. Who can explain to me?
I think that's the language the machine can read.
Yeah, this the language that the machine can read. It contain what does it contain for machine language? ABC. It contains
0 and 1.
Yeah, 0 and 1. It only contains 0 and 1, and it will make a sequence of 0 and 1. Okay, to create the common. Okay, để tạo ra những cái lệnh, đúng không? Đấy là một chuỗi 01 tạo ra các cái lệnh. And the common we use to control the computer, for example. Yeah. Okay. So this the machine language. Yeah. And the next generation, when you just see that when we just use sequence of 0 and 1, it's very, very difficult to understand and to remember exactly every command in the computer. Okay, so if you want to make something more easier to understand or more clear for human, we need to define some friendly language. And the first language, the first generation is imperative programming. And imperative, what does it mean? Nghĩa là gì? Imperative là gì nhỉ?
Về cái ngôn ngữ assembly.
Tức là imperative là mệnh lệnh đấy, đúng không? Kiểu như là kiểu ra lệnh, mệnh lệnh. Yes, and this kind, in this generation, this kind of language is now this the sequence of common. It's not the sequence of 0 and 1. Now it is a sequence of common. Yeah, every common. Yeah, very detailed common. Very detailed common. And step by step, you arrange the common, and you can do something, for example. So with this kind of generation language, it is hard for you to understand. Yeah, I think it's hard. It's quite hard. When you learn assembly language, it's quite hard. Yeah, it's for very professional hardware programming who need to understand about it. Okay, so because it's make us hard to read and hard to understand, they move to the next generation of language. They invent the new programming language we call structure and functional language. In this kind of language, the common is more clean or more clear to understand. Yeah, in this generation, the common is more clear to understand. It sometimes look like the natural language. Okay, and why we call it the functional programming language? because in this kind of programming language, a solution now or a program now will be divided into a smaller one. Okay, we will have the main program, and now we divide it into smaller one. Yeah, you don't need to do the whole program in just a sequence from step by step like this. You divide it into the smaller one we call the function, and then you can arrange the function to solve the problem. Okay, so what is the advantage of using function in your program? Someone can explain to me or can understand what is the advantage of using function, for example? Yeah.
Chia ra là mình chia các cái function nó sẽ làm từ một công việc một, chứ nó không gồm một việc để cho nó dễ được quản lý.
Đúng rồi.
Rất là nhiều các lệnh, nếu mà mình cùng làm nhiều lệnh ở trong một cái function thì nó sẽ làm cho khó sửa chữa nếu bị bug ấy. Đúng
rồi, chính xác, đúng không? The advantage of using the function is the reuse of code. Reuse of code. And of course, to manage the code. Quản lý code rõ ràng hơn, đúng không? Rồi có thể tái sử dụng các cái code này. For example, when you do imperative programming, you list the command step by step. And for example, at the beginning, you need to add something. And at the end, you need to add another thing. So you have to rewrite every code line. Okay. But when you use the function, you just define a function name add. And then later in the project, whenever you want to add something, you just call the add function. So you don't need to rewrite the add, you reuse the code. Okay, so this the very main advantage of the functional programming language. Okay, and lately, when you focus on the functional programming language, you focus on how you divide your program into function. Yeah, but in the next generation, we have the object-oriented programming language. We not focus on how we divide the program into function. We focus on how we can model our project, our problem among objects, and this very different from functional programming language. So if someone among you already learned C, for example, or Pascal, for example, this all functional programming language, you have to focus on this code. Because in this code, we focus on object. We not focus on function. Okay, we focus on object. So this the very big change, big difference between these two generations. Okay. Tức là sang đến cái thế hệ lập trình bằng hướng đối tượng thì là nó khác, là nó sẽ focus chủ yếu vào cách chúng ta mô hình hóa cái bài toán của mình về các cái đối tượng và tương tác giữa chúng, chứ không phải là đưa bài toán của mình về thành việc là phân chia thành các cái hàm nhỏ ở bên dưới hay là các cái chức năng nhỏ bên dưới. Cho nên các bạn phải lưu ý cái đấy, vì là rất nhiều bạn sau này làm phần bài tập lập trình yêu cầu là lập trình hướng đối tượng, môn học lập trình hướng đối tượng, nhưng mà cái cách viết bài, cái cách giải quyết bài toán lại vẫn chia theo hàm và làm, chả có một cái đối tượng nào, như thế không được nhé. So please pay attention. In this course, we focus on object-oriented. That means we focus on object, not focus on how we divide the main program into smaller one. Okay, so please pay attention on this. And let
thưa cô ạ.
Yes.
Cái phần hướng đối tượng ạ, thì theo em hiểu cái cách cô vừa nói là sau này khi bọn em làm bài tập ấy thì cái cách code của bọn em thì theo em hiểu là cả một cái code đấy là theo có một nhiệm vụ, và một nhiệm vụ đấy có thể hướng đến nhiều đối tượng phải không ạ?
Đúng rồi, tức là trước cô dạy một số lớp thì các bạn khi mà làm ra một cái bài là làm lập trình hướng đối tượng, đúng không? Môn của mình là lập trình hướng đối tượng, yêu cầu là lập trình giải quyết một cái bài toán như thế này. Thế là bạn ấy cứ đi vào là bạn ấy chỉ chia nhỏ cái bài toán đấy ra thành các cái hàm nhỏ bên dưới, và lập trình một cách rất là thứ tự, tuần tự, thế này làm thôi, chả thấy tạo ra một cái object nào cả, thì không phải, đúng không? Đấy, chúng ta chuyển sang cái tư duy lập trình mới, nó khác với tư duy lập trình hướng chức năng, hướng thành phần chức năng, hướng cấu trúc, là các bạn chia bài toán ra thành các cái hàm nhỏ, và sau đó các bạn gọi thì các bạn phải tập trung xem là làm thế nào cho nó tốt các cái hàm đấy. Thế nhưng sang đến cái tư duy lập trình của hướng đối tượng là bây giờ các bài toán của mình sau này các em học, các em sẽ được hiểu kỹ hơn, thì là các em sẽ phải tập trung vào là bài toán của tôi gồm các đối tượng gì, và mình sẽ triển khai các đối tượng đấy và tạo ra tương tác giữa các đối tượng đấy để hoàn thành được cái bài toán của mình. Đấy. Chứ còn cô cũng đã gặp nhiều nhóm làm bài tập lớn yêu cầu làm một cái vấn đề như thế này. Đương nhiên một bài toán chúng ta có nhiều cách giải quyết, đúng không? Các bạn có thể giải quyết theo hướng tuần tự cũng được, các bạn giải quyết hướng chức năng cũng được, các bạn giải quyết hướng đối tượng cũng được. Nhưng môn học của chúng ta là hướng đối tượng, thì chúng ta phải giải quyết theo bài toán theo hướng đối tượng. Phải định nghĩa ra được một vài cái class, ít nhất là thế, đúng không? Sau đấy trong hàm main của mình, trong cái chương trình chính của mình bắt đầu là tạo ra các cái object của các cái class đấy. Chứ không phải là viết một cái chương trình chả có cái class nào, có mỗi một cái hàm main, và trong đấy là thực hiện tất cả từ trên xuống dưới. Đấy, ý của cô lưu ý các bạn như vậy, đúng không? Các bạn đã rõ chưa?
Dạ thưa cô ạ. Em hỏi là trong một cái hàm main ấy thì chứa nhiều hàm nhỏ khác nhau, và các hàm nhỏ này tương tác với nhau
cái đấy
và
không
hoạt động
vấn đề gì.
với nhau, thì có phải là hướng đối tượng không ạ?
Cái hướng đối tượng của mình là tập trung vào việc các em tạo các cái class. Thế còn trong cái hàm main đấy các bạn, nếu mà các bạn cần phải sử dụng đến các cái hàm nhỏ hơn thì các bạn vẫn tạo, không có vấn đề gì cả. Nhưng mà còn những cái hàm đấy các bạn có viết ra thì trong nội dung cái hàm đấy các bạn vẫn là sự tương tác giữa các đối tượng, thì nó vẫn là hướng đối tượng nhá. Chứ không có nghĩa là trong hàm main của tôi không được phép viết một cái hàm nào cả. Mà thực ra tất cả những cái hàm này sau nó sẽ trở thành gì? Thành phương thức của một lớp. Đấy. Thì nó cũng vẫn có gì đấy, nó vẫn tóm gọn cả cái phần chia nhỏ một cái bài toán ra thành nhiều bài toán con ở trong. Thế nhưng mà nó tập trung nhiều hơn vào việc là tạo ra các đối tượng như thế nào cho hợp lý để giải quyết bài toán, hơn là cái việc là chỉ giải quyết bài toán trên hướng là dùng các cái dữ liệu và gọi đến các cái hàm. Đấy, nhá. Ok.
Thưa cô,
Yes.
nếu như mà mình làm bài lập trình theo hướng đối tượng ấy, thì tức là mình sẽ tạo ra rất là nhiều các class để mình thực hiện được để tạo ra được kết quả đấy. Và nếu như mà em tạo ra nhiều class và từ đấy mình chỉ nhập class vào và nó ra luôn kết quả, mà không phải lập ra những cái hàm nhỏ, hàm kiểu câu lệnh nhỏ ở trong hàm main ấy, mà em chỉ nhập, chỉ như thế nó được đúng không ạ?
Thì được. Không sao cả, đúng không? Nghĩa là mình thể hiện được cái tư tưởng là bài toán của tôi được giải quyết bằng cách sử dụng nhiều cái đối tượng như thế này. Đấy. Và tương tác của chúng làm sao, gọi lẫn nhau thế nào đấy để giải quyết bài toán nhé. Còn cái việc em có dùng thêm hàm nhỏ hay không thì đấy là tùy em thôi.
Anh cảm ơn.
Ok. Ok, thank you. Okay, this clear now. So maybe I will explain more for you what is the difference between functional and object-oriented. Okay. Lately, we just said that for functional oriented, we divide the main program into smaller part. Okay. And another thing we have, we can see here in functional programming language, a problem or a program will be the combination between data structure and algorithm. And in this algorithm, that means you divide into smaller function or smaller part. Okay. Yeah. And in this, in the last, in the previous slide, you don't see about the data structure. Okay. But in generally functional object, functional oriented programming, we have a program is a combination of data structure and algorithm. Okay, and in algorithm you will decide, you divide the program into small function like this, for example. But in the object oriented technology, a program is the combination of object and messages. Now we focus more on object. Okay, in the object here you can include the data and something. Okay, you will clear it later. Now I just to have you to imagine and to have the link between a functional oriented and object oriented. Okay, now you focus more on object, and the object will interact with each other with message. Okay, so this maybe the very short conclusion to you to distinguish between functional oriented and object oriented. Yeah, one you focus on the data and the algorithm, and the other you focus on the object and the message. Okay, that means now in the program you have some object, for example, object 1, object 2, and you have the interaction between object via the message. The message 1, and the object 1 will send the message to the object 2, and the object 2 will send the message to the object 1, for example. Okay, so now in the new generation, we focus on the object. Okay, so it is called object oriented. Okay, object oriented, hướng đối tượng là như vậy nhé. Rồi tất cả là focus vào object và tương tác giữa chúng để hoàn thành một cái program của mình. And Alan Kay is an American computer scientist who is the inventor. We can say like this: the inventor for the object-oriented programming said that everything is object. Everything is object. That means every element representation in our system will be object. Okay, all elements are object. Okay, we consider every element in the problem object. Okay, and we will modeling the system into multiple objects and the interaction between them. Okay, just the repetition. For example, you see you have a problem. Các bạn có một cái bài toán đúng không? Một bài toán. In the reality, you have a house, a person named Tom. You have a real car and a flower. This is a problem. The problem will be described like this. But when you want to create a software system, for example, you need to create an application in object-oriented modeling, object-oriented programming. You have to model. Là phải mô hình hóa the element in the reality into the object. So you will model a house in the reality into an object named house, for example, and you model a person into an object. You will model the car into the car object and flower object, for example. And then in your program, your program, you will have the interaction between these objects to solve the problem. for example. So this is just the illustration for you that now all elements in the reality will be modeled into object in your application. Okay. And the object-oriented technology will be the set of rules and the instruction for you to build the software. Yeah. And of course, it can combine with other technology, programming language, database, for example, to support this. Okay, so you know that the object-oriented technology will be the set of rules to introduce to you, to say to you how you can build the software in object-oriented approach. Okay, and the very specific characteristic in the object-oriented technology is some very specific technique. We call it abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and this technique you will be introduced more detail lately. Okay, and there are some milestone of the object technology. We have the very first object-oriented programming language named Simula. And then we have the Smalltalk is a programming language. And later we have C++. We have Java in the 91. And UML. UML is not a programming language. This is the language to modeling the object. It's not programming, it's a modeling language. Tức là đây là một cái loại ngôn ngữ để mô hình hóa, diễn tả và mô hình hóa hệ thống thôi, chứ không phải là ngôn ngữ lập trình. Okay. So what do you see the OOT in the real world? Yeah, maybe we see OOT everywhere now. We see the OOT in the client server system, in the web system, embedded system, for example. Okay, so we see everywhere in every software system. Okay, and there are 4 main blocks of the OOT. Yeah, and we will go to each block in the next chapter. But today I just introduce to you the idea of this block. Okay. Chi tiết về từng cái technique này thì chúng ta sẽ được học ở trong các chương tiếp. Còn bài hôm nay thì cô chỉ cho các bạn giới thiệu để các bạn hiểu được cái ý tưởng của từng cái block này nó là cái gì, nó khác gì so với cả các cái ngôn ngữ khác. Đấy. Okay. We have the first block is abstraction. What does it mean in Vietnamese? Abstraction. Okay, that means trừu tượng hóa. Okay, encapsulation.
Đóng gói.
Yes, this means đóng gói. Inheritance.
Thừa kế.
Thừa kế hay kế thừa. And polymorphism. Yeah, there's someone already know everything in the course. Okay, so this we can consider this. There are these four main blocks in the object-oriented technology. We will go to each block to understand what is this. Okay. Firstly, we talk about the abstraction. Trừu tượng. So someone can explain for me in Vietnamese, okay? What does it mean trừu tượng? Trừu tượng nghĩa là gì nhỉ? Tiếng Việt thế nào? Nó hiểu trừu tượng là gì?
It's not easy to touch or it means that it can be expressed physically.
Expressed physically? Các bạn express something physically? Not really physically, I think. It's just the way you how to say, you describe something. For example, you want to get the abstraction of a book, for example. Đúng không? Abstraction, trừu tượng thực ra là gì? Là cách mà tôi muốn mô tả một cái thứ gì đấy, một cái vật gì đấy. Đúng không? Và tôi nói ra bằng cái ngôn ngữ của tôi. Đó. Là mình trừu tượng hóa. Ví dụ một cái bức tranh trừu tượng cũng vậy, là họ muốn nói ra một cái ý tưởng gì đấy của họ bằng cách là họ mô tả bằng hình vẽ. Trừu tượng hóa thực ra là gì? Là cách các bạn mô tả một cái vật gì đấy bằng cái ngôn ngữ của mình, bằng hình ảnh của mình, hay bằng một cái gì đấy. Trừu tượng là thế. Đấy, tôi muốn nói đến cái vật đấy, đúng không? Thế nhưng mà để tôi diễn tả cho cái người bên cạnh thì tôi phải dùng cái từ ngữ. Ví dụ một cái thứ mà dùng để làm gì? Để viết vào chẳng hạn, đúng không? Dùng bút để viết vào, có nhiều trang. Đấy. Cứ viết vào thì không thể xóa đi được chẳng hạn. Đấy, có nhiều trang và làm bằng chất liệu là giấy. Đấy là cách tôi đang làm gì? Tôi đang mô tả một cái quyển vở. Và cũng là cách tôi đang gì? Trừu tượng hóa một cái quyển vở lên để tôi diễn tả nó với người bên cạnh. Đấy, trừu tượng hóa thực ra là như vậy, đúng không? Mình cứ nghĩ nó đơn giản thôi để cho nó dễ nhớ, dễ hiểu. Vậy trừu tượng hóa là this is the way you describe something. Okay? And how you describe something? Of course, you have to provide some information about this thing. Okay, you provide some information about this thing. And you will provide every information, or you just provide the very important information? Huh, student? Oh, someone hear me?
I think
Yes.
class. Name class.
Okay. So we take it easy. We go step by step. Yeah, there's someone very new in the object-oriented. So we can explain something very easy for them. Okay. Mình cứ đi từ từ thôi, đừng nói gì đến class, đến object vội, đúng không? Cô đang chỉ hỏi các bạn là vậy thì cái quá trình mà mình trừu tượng hóa thì mình sẽ phải sử dụng những cái thông tin như thế nào để mình mô tả một sự vật, sự việc bây giờ. Đấy. Đây, thêm cái slide này nữa cho dễ hiểu. Nào. Of course, when you describe something, you have to focus on the feature of this thing, okay? And if you use some feature very how to say, very common and very common in everything, it's not clear for the listener to understand what is this thing. So you have to focus on the basic feature of an object, of an entity, and you focus on the feature that distinguish this one with other one. Okay? Và khi chúng ta mô tả một cái sự vật, sự việc thì chúng ta phải mô tả làm sao? Dựa vào những cái thông tin gì, những cái đặc trưng gì cho phép là phân biệt cái sự vật, sự việc đấy với các cái sự vật, sự việc khác. Đúng chưa? Thì mới mang lại cái hiệu quả là truyền đạt cho người nghe. Tôi sẽ phải tập trung vào những cái thông tin, những cái đặc trưng mà chung nhất cho các sự vật, sự việc đấy. Và những cái đặc trưng đấy cho phép tôi là phân biệt nó với sự vật, sự việc khác. Ví dụ các bạn mô tả một quyển sách chẳng hạn, đúng không? Bây giờ tôi muốn mô tả về quyển sách hay về quyển vở này cho một người nào đấy nghe, thì tôi có thể dùng các cái thông tin như thế nào? Đương nhiên phải tập trung vào sách hay là vở. Ví dụ ở đây là sách vở giấy chẳng hạn, đúng không? Thì phải mô tả về cái thông tin là gì? Nó là làm bằng giấy. Đấy. Chứ không phải mô tả thông tin là nó là màu xanh hay là nó là màu đỏ. Chứ không phải. Nếu mà chỉ nói là nó là màu xanh, màu đỏ thì bao nhiêu thứ có thể xanh đỏ, đúng không? Thứ nhất là cung cấp là những cái thông tin gì? Làm sao? Là thông tin chung nhất cho tất cả các cái quyển sách, tất cả quyển vở đấy. Và đấy là thông tin cho phép phân biệt nó với cái khác. Thì thứ nhất là ví dụ đấy là một cái thứ làm bằng giấy. Đấy. Trong đó có chứa nhiều dòng chữ. Đấy, đúng không? Đấy là những thông tin chung nhất cho các quyển sách. Đấy. Và giúp chúng ta phân biệt được là người nghe chỉ cần nghe đến cái clue thứ hai là đã hiểu là có thể nó là quyển sách. Đấy. Yeah. Thì đấy là cái để so this the way you define something or you describe something, and you remember this example, because later when you have to define an object, you will need to, when you I will write down to you. Later when you have to define object, you have to list which is the most used information to describe this object. Information 1, information 2, information 3, for example. So it can help you to define one object and to distinguish, phân biệt nó with other object. Okay. Cái này là cái này không phải là cô đang nói luyên thuyên đâu nhé. Cái này là cái quan trọng đấy. Các bạn cũng phải nhớ đến những cái ví dụ này để sau này trong quá trình các bạn phát hiện các đối tượng thì các bạn phải làm gì? Phải liệt kê ra các cái thông tin mô tả đối tượng đấy, thì phải tập trung vào những thông tin gì? Là chung cho tất cả những cái đối tượng cùng một loại, đúng không? Và tập trung vào các cái thông tin cho phép phân biệt đối tượng này với các đối tượng khác. Đấy chính là what we call the abstraction. Okay. In the OOP. Okay. Not focus on very specific information. For example, ví dụ như là for example, for when you describe a car, you describe like this something of Tom or Peter. This very big, for example. This just a very specific information, and you cannot use this to distinguish a car to another thing. Okay, for the car you have to describe this something can run very fast with the motor. For example, it has a four wheel. For example, this the information you use to describe something. That means you abstract something. You get the abstraction of something. Okay? This clear for you?
Yes.
Okay. And another question for you. When I ask two persons to describe the same thing, maybe they will describe differently. Okay? Depend on the viewing angle. You can describe one thing differently. Okay? So we call that in abstraction, depend on the viewing angle. Some property could be important, but another property is not. So in some situation, you have to define which is the most important property in this situation. Okay, I will show you an example and you can understand clearly why when you do the abstraction you have to decide your viewing angle. Okay? Tức là gì? Cái cách mà mình mô tả là cũng phụ thuộc vào gì? Các cái tình huống khác nhau. Cùng một sự vật sự việc đấy, nhưng mà mình có thể mô tả khác nhau trong các tình huống khác nhau. For example, what do you see here?
A car.
A car, of course. Yeah, this a car. And how can you describe the car? You can list for me how you describe a car.
Brand name.
The brand name. Yes.
Brand, B-R-A-N-D.
What is this?
I see. Cái từ brand hình như là cô viết sai thôi. Brand có phải chữ D không cô? Hay là em nhìn nhầm?
D hả? D. Brand hay là branch? Okay, branch. Okay, brand name. Okay, what else? What can we describe for a car? The something here?
Color or what?
Okay, the color. What else?
Serial number.
Shape.
Yeah, the number of car, the ID number, for example. What else?
Kind of car.
Kind of car. Type, for example, type of a car. Okay. The very important. Who can drive the car? Who is the
Who has the license?
The owner of the car. Okay, who's owner of this car, for example? So you can see, you can list a lot. Okay, a lot of information. But whether every information like this is important for some case. For example, if I bring a car to the registration office, what is the most important for registration office when you want to manage every kind of city, for example? Of course, you cannot list all the information. You just want to focus on some very important in the registration office. For example, you need to know the ID number, okay? And very
color.
important, color. Maybe color. No, I don't want to know the color of every car in the city. I just want to know this car is owned by someone, for example. Okay, so I think these the two most important. Okay, and maybe the date of the car, for example. It not too old, for example, too old to transport, for example. So these are very important information for registration office. But for a garage, for example, garage is where we bring the car to fix something. What is the most important information for garage?
The kind of error, the type.
Yeah, for example, which kind of error, for example, and the brand name. Not to need to understand. Here's that means we save information for later, for example. Maybe we kind of error to fix the price, for example, the date. We need to return the car to the owner, for example. Maybe you understand what I mean. That means in some case, in different case, you will describe the same thing differently. For registration office, you need this important information, but for this error, you need another information. So we call it the different view. Okay, in different view, you will describe or you will have the different abstraction. Okay, is this okay? Okay, we will see this. Yeah, depend on the view. can describe the same thing differently. For registration, you have to need, for example, 4 information like this. For garage, you need this information. And for the owner, maybe you need this. Okay, for example, in car description, you need to know about the color, the brand name, for example. Yeah. Okay. So here, this one example for you to know that in different situation or in different problem, you will describe one thing differently. So be careful when you want to modeling. You want to model an object. You have to select the correct or the important information to describe this object. Okay, is this clear for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, we talk about the abstraction, and then we talk about the encapsulation. Encapsulation. Capsule này đúng không? Capsule là cái viên thuốc đấy. Encapsulation là mình bao gói các thứ lại trong cái viên đấy. Encapsulation. So I have this illustration for you, and you can explain for me what does it mean, encapsulation? Who can explain for me what do you understand about encapsulation? Oh, go ahead. When we learned online like this, it's very hard for teacher to demand some student in the class. I can go and pick up someone, but here it's really difficult. So how you imagine about the encapsulate?
Dạ, cô là mình đưa tất cả những cái thông tin thuộc tính quan trọng của cái vật đấy vào trong cái vật đấy, đúng không ạ?
Mục đích là để làm gì?
Mục đích thì là để khi mà mình nhìn vào thì mình phân biệt được đối tượng này với đối tượng khác ạ.
Cái đấy thì nó lại giống với cả cái tính trừu tượng vừa rồi, đúng không?
Vâng.
Nó có một cái gì đấy, nó thử suy nghĩ xem là nó sẽ mục đích của cái việc tôi đóng gói lại là để làm gì nhỉ?
Bảo mật.
Hả?
Bảo mật.
Ví dụ, ok, các bạn nhìn thấy cái này, các bạn biết nó là cái gì rồi gì? You can see this and you know it, okay? This is a micro oven, okay? And do you know what is inside the oven? No? Do you know inside the oven we have the magnet, you have the waveguide, you have stirrer, for example? Do you know this? No, I don't know. Okay, and more detailedly, do you know this? Everything like this? No, this very detailed. Okay, and what is what does the user know? The user knows only the outside. Okay. Yeah, I just know this oven, and I will use this and this to control the oven. Okay. I don't need to know about the very detail. Okay. So the purpose of encapsulate is to cover the object and mục đích là gì nhỉ? Đấy, cô vừa giải thích đấy. Vậy mục đích là gì?
Là ẩn đi những thông tin không cần thiết.
Đúng rồi. Mục đích là hide những cái thông tin chi tiết bên trong, đúng không? Mục đích là để mình ẩn đi các cái chi tiết. hide information. You can hide information when you encapsulate this inside an object. Okay. Đấy, tức là nhờ có encapsulate thì mình có thể che giấu những cái rất là chi tiết ở bên trong. Đấy. Và làm sao? Người dùng bên ngoài bây giờ chỉ cần quan trọng là cung cấp cho mình một cái oven. Vậy thì sẽ dùng cái nút để chỉnh thời gian và chỉnh nhiệt độ ở đây là nó hoạt động, đúng không? Không cần biết là bên trong nó gồm có ngần này thứ bộ phận này, rồi mỗi bộ phận này chi tiết lại là như thế này. Okay, so this the main purpose of the encapsulate that you will hide the inside implementation detail. Okay, and you provide an interface to the outside world, and the users will not be affected by the internal detail. That means the user now just know about how you execute the oven outside, and if this oven is broken, you bring it to the mechanism, and they will fix something inside, and you don't have to care it. Okay, that means, for example, when you have an object in our programming problem, when you have an object, you have something inside the object. Okay, and another object, we interact with this object, and it don't have to understand what inside. What is the detail inside this object? It's just need to know how it can put a button, for example, or how it can get some information. For example, this use the interface interaction. And later, when the developer wants to correct something inside this object is not affected. Okay, well, so this is the very, very important purpose of the encapsulation. Okay, hide something and have the user don't have to care about the execution inside. Okay, and every change inside an object will not affect the user. Okay, is this clear for you about the encapsulation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And later you will know how you use encapsulation in programming. Okay, this later. But now just understand the idea about what is encapsulation. Okay, and we move to the third one, which is called inheritance. Okay, thừa kế hay là kế thừa. Okay, of course you heard a lot about the inheritance. So can you explain for me how do you understand about the inheritance? How? What is inheritance? Maybe you have to see many films, many films, and we talk about the inheritance of a kingdom, for example. Okay, what does it mean, the inheritance? Okay, let's see in this illustration, what do you have here? You have a tree graph, okay? And in this tree, what do you have? You have vehicle, you have something branch, and yeah, now this is the branch here. This branch, okay? And later, previously this branch. Okay, you have vehicle here, and you have what else? Automobile, motorcycle, bus, okay? And later you have sedan, sport car, school bus, and luxury bus. Okay. So what information from this tree can bring to you? And we have the connection or relation. We call it relation here. Yeah, between bus and school bus, for example, we have the relation. So how you can imagine about the inheritance?
Is that you can create the new object that are built upon the existing object.
Yes. Yeah, that means you can define a very specific kind of object of the existing object. Okay. For example, you already have vehicle. This the one existed. Okay. You can define 3 kind of vehicle. Okay. Automobile, motorcycle, and bus. This is different kind. Okay, of the existing one. Okay, and the same thing. For example, you have the bus, and then you will have 2 different kind of bus: school bus and luxury bus. Okay, that means Turkey now. So you can understand Turkey means you can create new object based on the existing object. Okay, create new object based on the existing object. Okay, and when we create the new object like this, what can we get? What is the property of this kind? The property of this tree. What is the property? For example, you have school bird and luxury bird is both the birds. That means it will contain the characteristic of the birds. Okay, that means we create new object based on the existing object, and this new object will contain some property of the existing object. Okay, and the new object will contain the property of the existing object. It is correct. You can see it in the illustration. This is correct. Okay, that means school bus will be a bus. It will have every property of a bus. The same luxury bus will be a bus, and it will have every property of a bus. Okay, so this is the way we create the tree of inheritance, and we can apply it also into the programming. We can create different level of abstraction. Okay, các cái mức độ mô tả khác nhau, đúng không? When we increase the level of abstraction or we decrease the level of abstraction, we can get different kind of object, for example. And here just said that when we create the tree of inheritance, we can have a different level of abstraction. Okay, and we can have the similarity and the differences between the classes. Yeah, the child object will inherit a property of the parent object. Always like this. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we will take break in 10 minutes and we come back in 2 and 12. Okay. Is this clear for you for the inheritance?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we will come back at 2 and 12. Thank you. Take a break. Okay, student, we come back. Okay, now you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So now we talk again, we talk to the fourth block of the OOP is what is called polymorphism. Polymorphism. This in Vietnamese we call it đa hình. Yeah. And đa hình is a Sino-Vietnamese word that means one name and many form. Okay, that means in the OOP technique, we can describe an object or describe or perform an action in different way. Yeah, the same object but described in different way, or perform an action but in different way. So I give you some example to understand what does it mean one name many form. For example, you in your problem, you have a company and you have a person in the company you call staff. Okay, staff of the company, and you have the internship of the company also. So maybe in your company there is one person who can be considered as staff and also as an intern also. Yeah, and sometimes and when you define an intern of a company, you define that the intern will be one kind of staff, for example. So when you have to, for example, you have to decide the salary for this person. Maybe you have to treat this person. Sometimes you treat as intern, and sometimes you treat this person like a staff. For example, when you want to calculate the salary and you calculate the bonus, for example, for this person. So that means this the same with the same person. Oh, excuse me, someone can mute the microphone. Okay, so that means one person can be considered as a staff or as an intern in a suitable time. Okay, at some time, at a suitable time, they can consider as intern or staff. That means one name, many form. So this is the first example for you. The second example, for example, you want to travel to somewhere. That means you want to go from this place to another place. So you can choose many kind of vehicle. Okay, for example, a car, boat, or a plane, and you have the same result. You can travel from one place to another place. That means you can use different way to perform a service. So what is some example to you to have the idea about what is one name many form? Okay, and later in the chapter we will try to learn how we use or how we apply the polymorphism in the programming. It will be in the next chapter. Okay, so I introduce to you about the four main block to make the OOP technique. Okay, and now I will introduce to you about the object and the class. What is this? Okay, object we call đối tượng and class lớp. Okay, these two terms you have to understand and you have to distinguish. Okay, please remember, because many students always use object and class interchangeability. That means they sometimes they use the same terms for one thing. So please be careful nhé. Các bạn phải phân biệt được cách dùng và các cái khái niệm về object và class, chứ đừng dùng chúng lẫn lộn vào với nhau nhé. Gọi cái nào là lớp thì là lớp, gọi cái nào là đối tượng phải đúng. Okay, so firstly we will try to understand about the object definitions. So what is the object? What is object? Okay. Alan Kay say that everything is object. So what is object? Okay. Object mean any entity that we can perceive normally. Okay. So almost everything in the world we can model as object. Yeah. For example, physical object like this, or even mental object. For example, the idea, this mental object. Okay, you can define as object also. So no, almost everything we can define as object. Okay, and in programming, we call, and in the object, we have 2 new terms, state and behavior. Okay, every object we can define the state and the behavior of the object. The state or the attribute, maybe we can call it the attribute of the object. Okay, and the behavior is hành vi, hành động, đúng không? Of the object. Okay. So for example, here I have 2 objects, a car and a book. So what is the object and behavior of these 2 objects? Okay, for the state, for example, we can describe the car by describe how fast it is moving. Okay, or we can describe by how many miles is driven. Okay, this is the state of the car. For example, this car can move as fast as 100 kilometers per hour, or this car has been driven 2,000 kilometers. For example, this is the state of the car. Okay, and of course the car can have some behavior, like it can run, or we call it can move forward, backward, for example. It can stop, it can reverse, for example. This is the behavior of the car. Okay, and for the same for the books. For another object, book, we can have the state of the book. For example, who is the author of the book, or how many page number of this book. For example, the title of the book. For example, the year of publication, for example. And for book, we have also the behavior of a book. That means a book can be bought, can be borrowed, yeah, can be count the number of page. For example, these are behavior of the book that we can use to describe the object. Okay, I think this example is clear for you. And now you can distinguish between state and behavior. Can you distinguish between state and behavior? The state is the attribute, okay? And it can be described by a noun, for example. Okay, the title, the author, the number of page, for example. And the behavior is a verb. Yeah, so they describe how the object can behave. Okay? Okay, student. So we move to this example to more clear about the state and the behavior. For example, in this illustration, you have some information about one person. I said that about one person. What do you have about this person? Firstly, you have the name of this person. And what is her name? What is her name?
J. Clark.
Yes, you have the name of this person, Z. Clark. And then you have know about the employee ID of this person. And you know her ID is 567, for example. Okay. You have date, height, you have statute, you have discipline, maximum cost load. So name, employee, date, height, for example, we call them the attribute or
state.
Yeah, the attribute or the stage of this person. Okay. And G. Clark 567138, June Lai, for example, Turner, finance. What do you call this information?
Behavior.
No, this is not behavior. I asked you Jean Clark 567138, July 25, for example. What do you call it?
Information.
Exactly, more exactly. What information? The
data.
The data, the true or the right value. Okay, of this attribute. Okay, of this attribute. Okay, so please remember in the stage, you will have the stage name. You can call it the stage name, and you have the true value of the stage. And in this illustration, you will have the behavior for this person. He can submit, she can submit a final grade. She can accept, she can take this, for example, and there are behavior of this person. So take a note. The state of an object is one of the conditions in which the object is this. Okay, that means this is the stage. Okay. And the state of the object can change over the time. What does it mean can change over the time? That means the value of the state can change, okay, over the time. Okay, for example, this semester, the maximum cost load of this person is 3 classes, but in the next semester she can take 4 classes. Okay, that means the value for the state can change. And in some document you can find out different term. For example, they call this the attribute, and for this the value they call the stage. Okay, these are the different ways of using the term, but you have to understand that for each object you can define some information to describe the object, the property or the attribute. And each attribute will have the true value or the state, okay, of this value of this attribute. Okay, we call it property or attribute. Okay, we can have exact the exactly value or the state. Okay. Và các bạn nhớ lưu ý là khi mà mình nói về đối tượng thì đối tượng gồm có các cái thuộc tính hay các cái đặc điểm nào, đúng không? Các cái đặc trưng nào. Đấy. Và ứng với mỗi một cái thuộc tính và một đặc trưng đấy thì nó sẽ có một cái giá trị thực của nó. Đấy. Thì có thể là có những tài liệu người ta gọi chung cái đấy là trạng thái của một đối tượng. Có những tài liệu thì gọi rằng cái giá trị đấy mới là trạng thái. Nên là đang ở cái giá trị nào, nghĩa là đang ở cái trạng thái nào. Đấy, thì đấy là cái cách dùng thôi. Còn mình phải hiểu cái ý nghĩa của nó. Đấy là ví dụ đối tượng đến cô giáo này, đúng không? Tất cả các cái đối tượng giáo viên này thì đều có tên, employee ID, date, high status, vân vân. Đấy là các cái thuộc tính, các cái đặc điểm của giáo viên. Thế còn với từng cái giáo viên một thì sẽ có giá trị trạng thái hay là giá trị giá trị thực, giá trị chuẩn cho từng cái thuộc tính này. Đấy, ví dụ với người thứ nhất thì tên là A, người thứ hai thì tên là B, người thứ ba tên là C nhá. Cho nên là mỗi một object khác nhau thì sẽ có các cái giá trị thực cho thuộc tính, và các cái giá trị này thậm chí làm sao có thể thay đổi theo thời gian nhé. Là trải qua một vài cái tác động, tương tác nào đó với một đối tượng khác thì nó lại nhận được một cái giá trị khác. Đấy là cái ý nghĩa của cái ví dụ này, các bạn cần phải nắm được. Okay, and we talk about the behavior. What about the behavior? The behavior will determine how the object act and respond to the outside world. Okay, and because this act will be fixed. The how one object or how this person behave will be fixed. For example, every teacher will submit the final grade the same way. Every teacher will accept the cost offering the same way. So the way to act is fixed. Okay, it's different from the attribute or the state that can be changed over the time. The way to act of a behavior is always fixed. Okay, for every teacher or every object of the same kind. Okay. Okay. And later you will be learned how you can make the visibility of a behavior to other objects. Okay, that means the behavior of one object can be modeled into set of messages, and then it can be interact with other object. Okay, and one object will send a request, and one object and the target object will respond to you. Okay, it is clear for you for the behavior, and please remember that the behavior is always fixed. It don't have the state like the attribute, or it don't have the value like this. Okay, it don't have the value. It's always fixed. A sequence of command, sequence of action, for example, is always fixed. Okay, student?
Okay.
Okay. So we move to some resume. Summarize about the object in the OOP. Okay, everything are object. Okay, each object we have a specific attribute. Okay, we talk about the attribute here, or the property here, and here we have the term class. Ở đây chúng ta thấy cái thuật ngữ class. So how about class? Each object will have specific attribute that form its class of object. We have a new term, class of object. Okay, một lớp các cái đối tượng. Đấy. Vậy thì cái gì? Chính các cái thuộc tính đặc biệt của mỗi cái đối tượng này, đúng không? Sẽ giúp hình thành nên cái gọi là lớp đối tượng. Lớp đối tượng sẽ dùng để mô tả tất cả các cái cuộc thuộc tính, tất cả các cái đối tượng có cùng chung cái bộ attribute nào đấy thì được gọi là class of object. Okay. Each object in the program will has its own attribute value. Okay, the true value as I take previously. Yeah, and it will take its own memory. Okay. And all the objects belong to the same class. We have the same behavior. Yes, I have talked to you previously. That's every teacher, we have the same way to submit a grade, for example, or to take a note, for example. Every teacher, we have the same way to do something. So all objects belong to the same class. We have the same behavior. Okay, they will, for all objects in a class, we have attribute and behavior. Okay, and for all objects, the behavior is the same and the attribute is different by the value, the true value of the attribute. Each object with differently with difference by the value of the attribute. Okay, but for the behavior, all the objects we have the same behavior. Okay, and when we do the programming, the software can be considered as a set of objects that interact with each other. Okay, and they interact through the behavior. Okay, so this the relation between object and the behavior. For example, this object 1, we have the object 2. For example, this object is teacher, like the previous teacher, and this object is grade. The teacher here can interact with the grade by the action submit a grade, for example. So we call that in our program, this the program, for example, is the software program, can be considered as a set of objects and the interaction between them. And they will interact by using the behavior object. Okay, is this clear for you? Yeah, we have 2 objects in this system, and this object, a teacher wants to submit a grade, it will use the behavior submit a grade, and it can interact with the object grade, for example. Okay. So this some result for you about the object and the class, and we will get into detail example. Okay. For example, in this illustration, what do you have? You can demonstrate or you can describe an object using this illustration. For example, you will describe an object by drawing the attribute inside a cycle like this, and you draw the method. We have the new term method. Method is to specific a term of the behavior when you use in the programming situation. Okay, tức là method nó là một cái thuật ngữ để chỉ cái hành động, nó cái behavior và state là 2 cái thuật ngữ để các bạn chỉ ở trong cái thế giới nói chung. Thế còn khi mà đã đi vào cái bài toán lập trình hướng đối tượng thì các bạn sẽ dùng 2 thuật ngữ là attribute và method nhé. Đấy. Thì chúng ta sẽ dùng cái dạng biểu diễn như thế này để có thể biểu diễn một cái đối tượng ở trong lập trình hướng đối tượng. Đấy là sẽ bao gồm attribute và bao gồm các cái method, đúng không? Đấy. Thế thì cái cách biểu diễn này giúp chúng ta làm sao? We can have this illustrate to encapsulate or to wrap the attribute and the method of one object inside an object. Oh my God, what is it? Okay, so this the way you can describe an object, and you can wrapping or you can encapsulate all attribute and method in one illustration. Okay, and for example, what about this illustration? This an illustration for one object of the class bicycle. Yeah, you can have inside the illustration the attribute, okay, with the real value like this, and you will have the outside the behavior of this object or the method of this object. A bicycle can brake, can change the cadence, or can change the gear, for example. So who can say for me what is the advantage when you present the object like this by this illustration? Who can imagine the advantage of using this illustration? You see that, for example, this the object 1 and this the object 2. When two objects interact with each other, what can be happen? The object 1 want to interact with object 2. That means it have to interact with this layer. For example, the outside layer, okay? And that means we use the method to interact between objects. Go back to the previous, you see that here, objects interact with each other through the object behavior. So using this illustration, you can demonstrate that two objects will interact via the outside layer. That means they will interact via the method, okay? And another advantage of this illustration is that you can see the attribute. The attribute are hidden from other objects. You can see it. This object 1 cannot go directly to the attribute. No, it cannot. It has to go through the method before and can interact only with the method. It cannot go directly inside the core of the object. Okay? So this the advantage of the illustration, and I hope that you try to remember this illustration. So later you can explain clearly about the advantage of encapsulate. Okay. Previously we call that encapsulate is to hide the information. So this illustrate is demonstrate for you how it hide the information. It hide the attribute of the object in the core, and outside just have the method, and object interact via the method. The other object cannot go directly to inside data, okay, inside core. Is this okay for you, clear for you to understand?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So please remember this illustration to understand why we call encapsulate is to hide the information. Yeah, okay. And another term to you to remember is instance. Instance là thể hiện. Yeah. And each specified object is called an instance, and each attribute with specified value is called an attribute instance. Okay, it's just a new term to remember. Nhớ cái thuật ngữ instant này, tức là những cái đối tượng thực cụ thể thì sẽ được gọi là một cái thể hiện của lớp. Đấy. Và mỗi một cái thể hiện này thì cái thuộc tính của nó sẽ có một giá trị cụ thể, và giá trị đấy được gọi là thuộc tính của thể hiện nhé. Is this okay? So please remember about these two terms. And what about the class? Yeah, the class. You meet the term class. It's called object of a class or class of objects. So what is class? The class is a design or a prototype of all objects of same kind. Okay, it's a design. That means what does it mean, design? Very simple, it's just the description. Okay, remember, class is just the description for all objects of the same kind. Okay. For example, we can define a bicycle class, which is used to describe all bicycle objects. Okay. And the class will specify the common attribute and method for all objects of the same kind. Okay. So later we just describe a teacher named Jane Clark, but now we make it more generally to describe all teachers in a school, in a university, and we call it a class. Okay, so the class we describe all objects of the same kind with the attribute and method. Okay, and again, each object now will be an instance of a class. Okay, this is just the way you use the term. Okay, and each instance of a class will have their own attribute instance. Yeah, previously we have talked about this. Okay, for example, you have the first bicycle with 5 gears, and you have the second bicycle with 3 gears. So each object or each instance will have their own value. Okay. And this is the illustration for you. You have these 3 illustration. And what is the illustration for class and what is illustration for object? Where's class and where's object? You can imagine. Can you speak louder?
My by and your by is an object, and
okay.
The open is your class.
This class, okay. So you can see here we have 3 illustration. The first one is, we see that what dice has? It just have the name. of the property. Okay, it says the name of the methods. So it's just the description. It's just one description. So it can be a class. Okay, the class just provide the description. That means the name of the attribute and the name of the method. No value. Okay, no value. And the second and the third illustration, we call them objects because it have the value. Okay, for the attribute. That means this specific object. So it have the true value or the specific value for each object. Yeah, you can define, you can distinguish between class and object. So please use this during the course. Okay, các bạn phải luôn chú ý phân biệt chỗ nào là class, chỗ nào là object, không được dùng lẫn lộn nhé. Rất là nhiều bạn đến lúc trả lời bài cho cô giáo thì class thì nói là thành đối tượng, cái gì cũng đối tượng hết. Xong rồi tất cả các cái đều gọi là đối tượng. Cô bảo là đọc cho cô cái đoạn code này nó là cái gì. Đây là khai báo cái đối tượng ABC, nhưng mà thực ra đấy lại đang là khai báo lớp, thì các bạn phải rất chú ý đâu là lớp và đâu là đối tượng. Lớp chỉ là cái định nghĩa, nêu ra tên của các phương thức, các thuộc tính. Đấy, thế còn đối tượng là các cái thực thể thật cho cái lớp đấy. Và mỗi một cái đối tượng thì sẽ phải có cái giá trị cho thuộc tính cụ thể. Đấy. Current speed là bao nhiêu, current cadence là bao nhiêu nhé. Please remember, we go step by step and slowly, so everything needs to be clear. Okay, and later you are not confused or ambiguous between this term. Okay, mình học giỏi một cái môn không phải chỉ là mình lập trình nhoáy đúng không? Mà mình phải hiểu được thật là cặn kẽ từng thứ một, để sau này khi mà mình phát biểu một cái câu phát biểu ở đấy thì cho thấy cái sự chính xác trong cái câu nói của mình. Đấy, về sau các bạn mà đi phỏng vấn để xin việc có rất nhiều câu hỏi liên quan đến những cái thứ này thì phải thật là hiểu cặn kẽ từng cái thuật ngữ nó là cái gì để phát biểu cho nó đúng nhé. Okay, so you can see here in the first illustration we have the class definition. And in the bottom illustration, we have the object. Okay, and the object you see, the object always have the name. This is the object name. Okay, the object always have the name, object name differently. Many objects in one class. Okay. Okay. And of course, between the object, we know that it had the interaction. Okay, in the interaction is the way to communicate. Yeah, in the real world, we talk. Okay, we use the speech, you use the text, but in the object communicate via the messages. That means one object, we send a message to another object, and it will wait for the response of the target object. Okay, this is the way two objects can interact. And we know that to send a message, that means the object, the send object, for example, we use this method to interact with other object. Okay, and here you have to distinguish between calling a function and sending a message. So calling a function we see in the functional programming, and send a message we see in the object-oriented programming. Okay, so you have to distinguish between them. So what is the calling a function? In calling a function, you know that you can locate the exact code block that will be executed. And there's only one implementation for one function. Okay, the function name cannot be duplicated. Yeah, but in sending message, we don't know about the code block that will be executed. For example, when an object wants to do something or interact with some other object, they just send a message. That means they want to ask a service from an object. And the receiving object will be the one who decides what to do, not the sender. That means the sender don't know. The sender does not know what to do, what the target object do, what the object does. Okay, the sender does not know what the target object does. It's just know to send the message. And the way the target does is depend on the target. They don't know about this. Okay. And another difference is object. One object can have different implementation for the same service. Depend on the sender. Yeah, we will learn about it later. But at this time, hope that you can distinguish between calling a function and sending a message. Okay, calling a function, that means you know exactly what to do. When you call a function, that you have to understand what will be do in this function. But sending a message is just ask a service, and you don't need to know how they do. Okay, so these are just two terms, and you have to distinguish. And another again about the message and the methods is the term you have to distinguish. And I hope you can distinguish this. Message is just a signal to send from one object to another, and it not include the implementation code block. And the method is the structure, is look like the procedure or the function in the structure programming. It includes the implementation code block. Okay, it's the implementation code block to respond to the message they receive. Okay, so I think it's clear for you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So we have the third part about the driver, and I think we don't have much time. So I will go to this part quickly, and you can read it later because it's just the introduction about Java. Okay, it's Java's programming language. At the beginning, it's owned by the Sun Microsoft, but now it's changed to the Oracle, and you can see many logos of the Java during the time. And firstly, it's used to build application in the control processor, but now it's become a real technology, a real development framework or programming language. It's the combination of all this. Okay, and in each Java product, you will have the Java Development Kit, JDK. You will have the Java Runtime Environment, JRE. And Java Virtual Machine. This is very important in the Java. Okay, and the Java can support many platforms. That means you can deploy, you can coding a Java application, and you can run it in many platforms. Sun, Solaris, Linux, and Windows FreeBSD, for example. So this very strong property of Java. Okay. And this is a very detailed component of a Java product. You can see a lot of things inside a product. Okay. And for Java, it's different from other way to do the programming. Is Java use the compiler and interpreter. Okay. For the traditional compiler, the source code will be compile into the machine code, and this compiler depends on the platform. They depend on the platform. Excuse me, I can go out 2 minutes. Yes, excuse me, I come back. Okay, so the machine code will be different on different platform. That means when you have the same command or the same command line or the same code, and you want to deploy it in different platform, you have to use different compiler, and they will compile into different sequence of machine code, sequence of 1 and 0. So when you bring the sequence of 0, 1, for example, into different platform, you cannot run. Yeah. So Java 1 dot, we can write once and we run anywhere. So the process of in the Java, they use like this. They have the source code. Okay, they will pass it into a compiler to get a bytecode. Bytecode is one kind of 10 also, but it is saved in a specific file. And in the computer with different platform, we just need to install the JVM. And the JVM can read the bytecode and convert it to the corresponding machine code corresponding to the platform, because it's known by the JVM. So this is why when you write down one Java source code, you can compile it to class 5 and you bring the class 5 into different platform and you can run it correctly. Okay? So this is the difference from other language that is just based on the compiler. Okay. So JVM is the heart of the Java. Okay, it will create for you the inner environment to execute the command, and it can compile, interpret just in time. That means when it needs it compile. And there is some Java feature. Okay, you can read it in the slide. And Java now support many kind of application, from smart card, SIM card, enterprise application, embedded application, for every kind of application. Okay, and for the next week, you will have to prepare your JDK, and you need to install the JDK, and you will need to install an integrated development environment, IDE. That means this the environment where you will coding and running the project. Okay, you can choose between NetBeans, Eclipse, or IntelliJ. Okay, and try to install it. And so the next week we will have my exercise, and we can start coding. Okay, the document for installation you can find out in the internet, and there is some example program you can try to run. And at that time you don't need to understand every command, but you try to know that your idea is installed correctly. Okay. So your homework for this week is try to install Java and one IDE, and try to run all the example in this part. Okay. Okay. So do you have any question?
Em có câu em hỏi về bài tập lớn ạ. Thì
Yes.
cái đề tài thì lúc nào sẽ có cô? Hay là mình tự chọn ạ?
No, because we have 1 week to change the decision for the student to change the decision. So the project we present to you will be present to you maybe in the 2nd or the 3rd week. And because the project are the same, very simple and nearly the same between project, so normally I will take it randomly to the group. Okay. So no problem. It's just very small project of 2 or 3 students. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So if you don't have any question, we can stop the class now, and you can move to other class. Thank you, and see you next week. Okay.
Goodbye, teacher.
Goodbye. Okay. Chào các bạn nha. Có gì cần hỏi thì hỏi cô trên team cũng được nha.